I could take a break from this world. Running on a hamster wheel, but searching for something I can't feel. I just wanna be a lost girl and fly. Take a breath, feel my wings spread, levitate above the ground and make eye contact with clouds. Now I'm rising, I'm soaring above it all. I just wanna be free, finally, I wanna be free, finally, I wanna be free, finally, I wanna be free, finally. I always stay dreaming, never imagined I lose my spark. Living in this crazy time, putting back the pieces of my mind. I know how to run from the dark and fly. Feel my wings spread, levitate into the clouds. I'm so high above the ground. I'm rising, I'm soaring above it all. I just wanna be free, finally, I wanna be free.
Race, conversations, and law enforcement. This is Moses' People Speak. Welcome everyone to another episode of Moses People Speak. I'm your host, Terry Watson. Today we have a great conversation with our brother here backstage, Raymond Hicks, and I'm really looking forward to that conversation. Before we get started, there are a couple of announcements to make for Strategies for Justice. So first thing is, if everyone has been paying attention, we know that the New York State Senate has put on the table their version of Carrier's Law, and we want the law enforcement community to come out and support this law. It is a law for a duty to intervene, and again, this the New York Senate Bill S1619A, and again, we want people to come out and support this bill. So by all means, I will put the link in the chat box regarding this bill, and so one thing we can talk about is how we can come out and support this bill. The second thing I want to mention is, if you had tuned in last week, or maybe sorry, a couple weeks ago, I interviewed Brother Abraham Bowden. Abraham Bowden was the first Black Secret Service agent to be assigned to the duty for the White House detail. And one thing that we did promise Brother Abraham was that we were going to write a letter on his behalf to have him exonerated. So we want to make sure that our law enforcement community is coming out to support that. And again, I'm going to post a link to that in the chat box at the end of this episode. And also, we will be asking for President Biden to sign that that letter, so we can make sure that our brother is exonerated from being wrongfully accused and imprisoned and charged. The next thing I want to talk about is this year we are celebrating the 110th commemoration of Samuel J. Battle. Samuel J. Battle was appointed to the NYPD in June 26 of 1911. This is the 110th commemoration. We're asking law enforcement across the country to share their stories, and I'm going to post more information about that. So make sure you subscribe to our channel so you can get that information as well. One thing I want to talk about before we get going is, a couple of weeks ago, Strategies for Justice released our info card on interrupting acts and practices of police misconduct. The three things that we sort of highlighted in this this info card is that we are one tipping our hats off to our brothers and sisters who are speaking out, who are being a whistleblower, and who's also intervening when they see misconduct. And that is really important in changing the culture of policing. Which brings me to today's conversation. I'm very excited to have our brother on today, Raymond Hicks. A little bit about Raymond Hicks. Raymond was he was a decorated sheriff deputy, and he was falsely accused and derailed, which derailed his career, his family well-being, all which is captured in his book, I'm Still Standing. Mr. Hicks' story of growing up in poverty to joining law enforcement was part of the American dream for him. But after becoming a whistleblower, he found himself framed and incarcerated for a crime he didn't commit, which is also the beginning of his American nightmare. So one of the things we want to do is welcome my brother here, Raymond Hicks. Raymond, I see that you logged in here on the computer. Again, welcome to Moses People Speak.
Thank you, my brother. I really appreciate it, man.
Yes. I know that you and we've talked a couple of times already. I know we had some really impactful conversations in the past. And with that, I know that you have an amazing story to tell. So I'm really happy that you're able to join us tonight. And also, you have a crew backstage who I'm hoping will somehow participate in either private chat or what have you not. So Raymond, before we get started to talk about your story in law enforcement, tell us a little bit about yourself, growing up. Really, what made you decide to go into law enforcement?
It was, as I stated before, at the age of 7, there was always, turmoil in my home where there was, stabbing, cutting. Eventually, my mom was shot, and when the cops came to my home, they pulled me, they tried to come, hey, come here, little man, let me talk to you, and it was during that time that I said that if I didn't play professional football, then I would go into law enforcement to make a difference in the community, to inspire other individuals who come from poverty that, hey, you can make it, man, as long as you believe in yourself, put God first, and move forward in life. And of course, that's when I made a decision that, again, if I didn't play professional football, then I would go into law enforcement to make a difference. I was about 7 to 8 years of age during that time.
Mm-hmm. So when you think about your childhood growing up and think about going into law enforcement, did you have anyone mentor you into law enforcement?
No, I never really had anyone that mentored me to go into law enforcement age. Again, as I got older, I'm the first generation to ever go into law enforcement. As I stated before, my family don't do cops, man. I remember when I was about 11 or 12 years of age, my family had fights with the cops, where they beat the cops with the water hose and everything else, man. You know what I mean? So this was just something that my family just, was against, which was law enforcement. My dad always said to me as a young kid, cops are cruel and they're nasty. And of course, now it has become reality because of the situation that I've experienced and what I've gone through. But I'm one of the first generation ever going enforcement.
Now, when you reached out to me, Raymond, and you reached out to me because of the story of Carrier Horn, you said you reached out, you said, I have a similar story to tell. And you sort of mentioned that your story expands over 20 plus years. So let's start with the whistleblowing. What led you to down that pathway of being a whistleblower?
Well, I used to always hear the inmates come through the jail, when I worked in the jail, working in the streets, working narcotics. And they always say, they plant drugs on us, they beat us to the ground and take money. So I decided that I was going to go out there and actually work with Drug Task Force, OCD, which is Organized Crime in the Cradle, within 1,000 feet of a school, 3 years in the state penitentiary. And it was during that time that I watched my colleagues, drugs on black offenders around, taking money from them. And I told him, man, this is totally wrong and totally unethical. I'm not going to indulge in this type of practice, man, because this is not right. And I'll never forget it, Mr. Watson. We were off of Sunrise, Andrew Avenue and 4th Street, where we was actually doing a bypass, where we went out. The commander would give us so many cocaine rocks, and we posed as undercover sellers, you know. And I'm watching my colleagues keep the money and the proceeds, and I'm like, what are you guys doing, man? This is not right. You got to turn that in. They told me I need to mind my business. I said, what do you mean, mind my business? I said, you guys took an oath and obligation to uphold the law, man. What gives you guys the right to do things to these people, man? You know, if they're wrong, you arrest them. If they're not right, if they're not wrong, you leave them alone, man. And of course, they told me mind my business. I said, what do you mean mind my business? And as a result of it, I thought bringing it to the sergeant, the lieutenant, and everybody else's attention that they would look into this matter. But ultimately, you know, this is when they start applying, you know, charges against me to try and destroy my life, which
I'm sorry, Raymond. I think you could have cut out there too at the end, but definitely take your time, brother.
You know, this is, you know, to be honest with you, Mr. Watson, you know, every time this situation comes out, and, you know, I think about me growing up the way I grew up. It was so difficult for my mom doing the best she could, man, to try and raise us, working 2 jobs, you know, and for me to go into law enforcement, man, to try and make a difference. And because I choose not to get involved with the illegal virtue that was going on with my department, you know, they literally came out to me and tried to destroy my life, man. And every time I talk about this situation, it infuriates me, man. You know, it makes me, it just, I don't know how to even describe it to you, because what these people did was wrong, man. If I'm wrong about something I did, if it's my mom, my wife, my kids, my father, my brother, my sister, my cousin, my uncles, my aunts, and whoever else, man, if they do something wrong, then you got a job to do what you have to do. But you're not going to accuse me of something that I have never done in my entire life and then try and think that it's okay, man. It's not okay. Mm-hmm. You know, but I'll never get it the longest day I live. Only thing I tried to do was bring, you know, the corruption to the forefront. And as a result of me bringing it to the forefront, these people's come after me.
And Raymond, and when we spoke, this happened a couple of times, right? And do you remember the first time? And again, take your time, brother. But the first time that they came after you.
Yes, I went to work. They actually couldn't work the streets anymore. I told them it's fine with me. You know, I started out in the jail anyway back in 1986. You know, so they put me back in the jail. I'm working on the 6th floor. I go to work that day on June 15, 2000. I come home and I always, you know, take a shower, take a nap, and around about 5:30, I get up to go work out in my backyard. And of course, me and some friends, we got ready to go work out in my backyard. And I look across the street over at the Citgo, and I told my friend who was working out with me, I said, man, that's either the drug task force or the SWAT team mounted up. And of course, when they saw me, they all jumped in their cars and they sped down the back street. And I told my friend, I said, man, let's go to the front of my yard and see where they're going. So when I walked to the front of my yard, you know, 60-some cops, man, stormed me at gunpoint, you know. My wife and kids had gone to Winn-Dixie. My wife had gone to Winn-Dixie. My kid was standing out there screaming and yelling, man, you know, and I'm asking them, I'm like, what is this about, man? You know, they like, are you Raymond Hicks? I said, man, you guys know I'm Raymond Hicks. What do you mean, man, Raymond Hicks? And they was like, oh, well, we got a warrant for your arrest. I said, for what? So all of a sudden, this dude named Ricky Clark, he comes to me, you know, he patting me at my shoulder, telling me, Ray, just calm down. I said, what the freak you mean, Ricky, calm down, man? I said, you guys here at my house, you got my whole family at gunpoint, the neighbors and everybody looking on, and you telling me to calm down for what? What did I do? And he was like, man, just calm down, man. I said, I'm like, what you mean calm down, man? And they go and they rip up my freaking house, you know, telling me that Dave Robshaw, he says, Ray, he said, do you have guns in the house? I said, yes, I got guns in the house, and they belong to me. They don't belong to the sheriff's office. And he asked me what was my ID, and I told my ID's in the house. I said, you want me to go get him? He said, no. So they handcuffed me, and they go in the house, and when they get back outside, he tell me, well, Ray, I'm going to suspend you without pay, pending the outcome of this investigation. So then they take me, and they put me in the cruiser, and then they transport me over to District 5. So when I arrive over there, I'm asking questions like, hey, man, why am I here? What did I do? They're like, oh, well, Ray, we can't discuss it right now. I say, everybody telling me that you can't discuss it. You guys come to my home and tell me you got a warrant. You never showed me the warrant. You never read me my Miranda. And here it is. You can't tell me what I'm here for. So eventually they put me in there at District 5, and then they transported me over to the city jail. So I arrived at the city jail, Mr. Watson, and when I arrived there, I'm still asking questions like, why am I here? Nobody still has things. So they put me in solitary confinement. So I stayed there for one night, and the next morning, the marshal shows up. And what the marshal's doing here? This got to be serious. So then I said, man, what did I do? And they said, Ray, we're here to take you to court. So they handcuffed me and shackled me. They placed me in an unmarked unit, and they transported me over to the federal courthouse. And when I arrived there, Mr. Watson.
And for people to understand about the U.S. Marshal, when a U.S. Marshal is involved, it's because it's moved from county level to federal. Is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So when I arrived there in court, the prosecutor, she says, well, she proffered to the court. She said, well, Mr. Hicks is at work. He's in the top 10% of his department. But when he's not at work, he's into other curricular activity. So my mom and my wife who were sitting in the courtroom, and I'm like, what are these speaking people talk about, man? So my mom was like, Lamar, just calm down. Just come like So I listened to her, and she said that I went to various states delivering 350 kilograms of cocaine, man. And I said to myself, I'm like, I ain't never touched drugs in my life, never tried a marijuana cigarette in my life. I didn't touch drugs until I was out working narcotics. And all of a sudden, the judge says to me, well, Mr. Hicks, you're a menace to society. And I'm saying, a menace to society? So how do you go from being a highly decorated officer to a menace to society? She said, you're not a flight risk, but I'm going to detain you at the Federal Detention Center.
Wow. And throughout this whole time, I know that you and we talked about this too, because now when this happened, the first time this happened, it was you, your wife, and your kids that was going through this with you, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Okay. So Raymond, I guess could you sort of give us a little insight? What happened after you were incarcerated?
So the marshals transport me down to the Federal Detention Center in Miami. When I got down there, Mr. Watson, they treated me like I was the lowest scum on the face of this earth.
Take your time, brother.
It's a certain way that you script certain inmate, and the officer really tried to ridicule me in every which way they can, man. And of course, they came to me, they gave me an orange jumper, and they took me up to the hole. And when I arrived in the hole, which is called the SHU, in the Federal Detention Center, I stayed there for almost 5 months, man. 23 hours a day, 1 hour a day for recreation. And the officer was jerking at me. They was saying, cop, you're gone for the rest of your life. You're a low life scumbag, and it got to a point where I just started pushing the emergency button inside the unit. Because I knew at some point, man, I was going to either have to fight some of them or fight with some of the other inmates. And of course, I started doing about 1,000, 1,500 push-ups every other day. And I was really conditioning my mind and my body just in case if I just, had to defend myself. And I never forget it. There was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Fernandez. He was a captain. And he came to me and said, Mr. Hicks, he said, listen, man, why are you threatening my staff? I said, I'm not threatening your staff, man. It's just your staff threatening me, man. I said, jigging it, man. I wouldn't even eat, Mr. Watson, but I felt like they spat at my food. If it wasn't a hot dog or hamburger or something, I wasn't going to eat it, man, And, of course, it was during that time that he gave me a phone call, to reach out to my wife and kids because I had not spoken to them. And he says, Ray, the only other way you're going to be able to talk to your family, man, is we have to put you down in general population. I told him, I said, I don't care where you put me, man. You can pick me wherever. I'm going to hold my own. And, of course, after the phone call, they took me down to 7 West at the Federal Detention Center in Miami. And I was there in general population, which is a death threat officer.
One thing about your story, Raymond, I also found amazing. Besides the fact that there was no, at the end of this, there was no charges that stuck, right? But you talked about the fact that some of the people that you arrested or was when you were working in the prison system, you are now their cellmates. And
that is correct, Mr. Watson.
Right. Is there any story that sticks out to your mind about that experience?
Yes, as a matter of fact, absolutely right. There was about 8 inmates that I either arrested or I was over when I worked in the jail. And when they saw me walk through the door, man, they were saying, no, man, not Hicks, man. He was one of the best, man. These are people who I inspired along the way, man. People that I've arrested or people that I was over when they came through the jail system. And all of a sudden, here come this one inmate. He was about 6'4", 270, from day, Cat gonna tell me, because he saw my picture parade over the newscast, that effing up, And this guy named Brian, we call him Brian, but his name is Maurice. He said, man, you know who that is? He said, man, Big Hicks, man, you crazy? He come from where we come from, man. He gonna thump, man. I'm telling you, you barking up the wrong tree. You mess with the wrong person, dude. He was like, man, F him. I hate effing cops. I get ready to go take my bedroll and put it down on the bump. And as I'm putting my bedroll down on the bump, there he is standing in the door. So there's 122 inmates in the cell where I was. There's an upper and a lower tier. So inmates told him, big man, you running your mouth going on in there. So there was some gentlemen in Miami called the Doughboys. And of course they were, man, going on, you running your mouth going on in there. And I told him, I said, you bumping your freaking gums, come on in here, man. We can handle this like men. And Mr. Watson, I literally, when he came door, he tried to rush me. And when he tried to rush me, man, when I hit him, he fell to the floor and I tried to beat him to death. I tried to put my fist through his brain, man. Blood gushing from his face like a faucet. And there was one of the guys from the Dope Boys. He was like, big homie, come on, man. So that's when they gave me the name Big Homie. I literally tried to kill him, man, to let him know who the freak you think you're playing with, man. I'm not the one for you to play with.
And all this happened again. You spent 16 months, correct? Is it 6? No, it was 16 months.
16 and a half months.
16 and a half months.
16 and a half months.
6.5 months.
No, 16 and a half months.
16 and a half months. Wow. So let's talk about. So your trial happens. What transpired there in your trial?
So they come to me. First of all, the court-appointed attorneys that was representing me, they tried to force me to take the time. But one of them said to me, Mr. Fagenbaum, he said, Mr. Hicks, he said, on your manuscript, write down everything that happened because one day this could possibly be a bestseller book, maybe a movie. And he took back to court and he got off the case. He said, I don't want nothing else to do with this case. That's what he told the judge. So they gave me another court-appointed attorney, Ruben Garcia. So it's me take the 16 and a half months telling me that this is the feds. They got a 99.9% conviction rate. I told him, I said, man, God got a conviction rate of 0%. Man, I told you guys from day one, I haven't done anything, and you're not going to force me to say that I did something that I didn't do. And of course, he actually took my case. He took me back to court because I got letters from my co-defendant saying that I never conspired or did anything wrong. And he got off the case. So eventually my wife, she went to her thrift savings and she took out, I don't know, between $15,000 and she gave it to an attorney by the name of Michael Bloom. And he was a former federal prosecutor, never lost a case in 15 years. And he said, if I never seen it, I said, man, you're one of them. You shouldn't be here. He actually went to my mother home, told my mom. He said, Miss Hicks, he says, I know what a drug dealer looked like. That young man right there is not a drug dealer. You know, this is what my mom corroborated to me, her and my wife. And he said, I'm prepared to take you to trial. I said, I know you was God sent you here because I was not going to take anything. I'd rather take life imprisonment because I'm not going to admit to something that I didn't do. And of course, we go to trial on August 27th of 01. And when we get to trial, you know, they chose all white. They chose 11 white, 1 black, all business people. And during the course of trial, they found out that I never did anything wrong. The judge said, what are drugs? They said, the DA said, we have no drugs. He said, where's the money? We have no money. He said, why? A holiday have nothing to substantiate here.
Raymond, you're cutting in and out. Do you want to switch to your phone? I think your phone was actually working a little bit better. Because I think your story is right. Yeah, your story is too powerful to be to have it chopped up. And by the way, you have an amazing support system backstage. It's amazing the folks who showed up with you for this conversation. I want to remind those backstage, if you want me to ask anything or lead to any part of the story, go ahead and put it in the private chat as well. All right, I think you just came in. Oh, there you go. Nope. A little technology adjustment. Yeah, there you go. That's a lot better.
All right, sir.
That's a lot better. Yes. So let's go back for a second. The court
Are you
trial.
there, Mr. Watson?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? No, the way you had it before is perfect too. But bring it down just a little bit more. Other way. Sorry.
Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? That's perfect. Yep, that's perfect. Good. There we go. Can you hear me?
Can you hear nothing?
Yep. That looks good.
No.
Okay, we got a little technology difficulties going on here.
Can you hear me, sir?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, perfect. There we go. Welcome back. Yeah, this is a lot better actually. So your court date. You're in a court. Judge asked a question. What questions did the judge ask?
Yeah, he asked the DA. He says, "Where are the drugs?" And the DA says, "We have no drugs." He says, "Where's the money?" She said, "We have no money." He says, so he slammed the gavel. You would have think it shattered over the entire courtroom. And he says, "You mean to tell me you bring a highly decorated officer in here? You have nothing to substantiate the charges, no drugs, no money. So why is he here?" So he called for a sidebar. So after he called for the sidebar, he said, "For impeachment purposes, everything y'all said to bring this young man in this courtroom, you better come back here with the same information." So then they went back live, and the judge said, "So why is this man here?" Then they lied and said I gave confidential law enforcement information, FCIC, NCIC, and a communication operator came in and testified. Her name was Captain Munez. She said, "I worked in this capacity for 25 years, and by Mr. Hicks' attorney come in here and testify. At no time did Mr. Hicks run the FCIC during this time or NCIC." She said, "And furthermore, it's ran through your social security number." So then they lied and said, "Well, he was on audio tape." So the judge said, "Well, okay, we'll play the tape for the jury and the judge." So when they played the tape for the jury and the judge, they found out that it wasn't my voice, but in fact, it was the same deputy who arrested me, Bernard Brown. And as a matter of fact, then they called themselves bringing an informant named Ansel Pratt. He said that on December 24th, 1999, I was at a red light, and he said I pointed my finger at him and his wife in the motion that I was going to kill both of them. And when they brought his wife in there, Miss Shirley Pratt, who worked for the Postal Service, she came in. My attorney said, "Miss Pratt, do you know this gentleman sitting next to me?" She looked at me. She said, "No, I've never seen this man before." He said, "Okay, well, your husband said on December 24th of 1999, the two of you was at a red light, and Mr. Hicks pointed his finger at you and motioned that he was going to shoot the two of you." She said, "My husband is telling a lie because we wasn't even together during that time."
Wow. So after because you worked in law enforcement for how long, Raymond?
I started in 1986, 11/17/1986, and I finished on October 6th of 03, which is when I took my case to arbitration.
Okay. After your case, after you were in prison, after your case, which the judge said there no drugs, no money, the evidence that was brought up wasn't actually evidence that they said it was. What was what did you receive as restorative justice after that?
The jury deliberated, and they came back with a not guilty verdict within 30 minutes. But they said they could have come back within 10 minutes.
Hmm. You know what? I don't know if you saw this, but your mother is with you today, and she's asking to join it. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, welcome to Moses People Speak. Is it Miss Bernice Hicks?
Yes.
All right. Well, this is very again. You have a lot of your family backstage, Raymond, and I love the fact that you have your family support, and what a pleasure it is to have you on as well, Miss Hicks. What you obviously witnessed your son go through this whole thing. How did that impact? What was your take on this?
Excuse me?
What was your take on this whole situation?
How do I feel about it?
Yes.
You know, I am Bernice Hicks. I am the mother of Raymond Lamar Hicks. That's my oldest child. My son has never in his life put his hand on no drugs. You know why? Because I'm still sitting here.
Mm.
I'm one of those mothers don't stand up for and tell no lie. They ain't gonna take up for him if he wrong. If he right, he right. If he wrong, he wrong. But like I was on national TV, and I'll tell the world I put my life on the line. My son never had nothing to do with no drugs. Never heard about him having nothing to do with no drugs until he started working for Broward County Sheriff Department.
Mm.
And how do I feel about it? Sir. I was driving a 95 Pontiac Trans Am. And I tell you, when I heard about it, my grandbaby's calling me, screaming and hollering and crying on the phone. I had everything I had in my hand. I went and threw it in the refrigerator, and I got in that car. And I'm telling you, if it had been an airplane, I guess I would have flew there. It was hurtful. It was very hurtful. It was very hurtful. And the next thing I know, it was saying, she said, "Oh, grandma said it got mommy too." I said, "What?" Lord Jesus, didn't look like I could get there fast enough. And I got on national TV and I let them know. Sun Sentinel. I said, "I put my life on the line." It was very hurtful. I tell you, it was very hurtful. When he was coming here to see his father laying at the point of death, they claim he was trafficking cocaine up. He didn't know. No, he couldn't have been bringing no cocaine here. Not in I was here. Like I said, not if I was here. And everybody in any river county would tell you, let you know. I'm one of them kind of mothers. I stand about 4 feet 11. I weigh about 136 pounds. But I tell you what, I stand my ground. And they knew it. They knew it. They knew better. Because they couldn't come around me. Now they father with no mess like that. It was hurtful. It was so hurtful I didn't know what to do. And like he said, Michael Bloom, the attorney, sit in my living room. And he said, "Miss Hicks, see, your son is not a drug dealer." And so did there was another attorney, and he's right there in Fort Lauderdale, highly paid. I just remember his name, but my son knew who I'm talking about. And he said, "Your son is not a drug dealer. He's not a drug dealer." He said, "I know him." He said, "He's not a drug dealer." No. He said, "No." He said, "But I tell you this." He said, "God." He didn't say God. I said. He said himself. He said, if it's meant for him to get out, so he will be out. I'll get him out. I said, "No, God gonna get him out, cause they wrong. They wrong for it. They wrong for what they doing." Taking him away from his children and his wife for like 16 months. One of my nieces say, "Better tell Lamar to take it and get on out of there." I said, "No, I ain't." I said, "He ain't gonna tell no lie, and he ain't gonna lie for nothing that he didn't do. Sit there. God, if he telling the truth, God will deliver him." And sure enough, he walked out through them double doors with his Bible up on his arm, just like they took him in there. He walked right on out of there. He walked out of there clean. But they took him in there. He's supposed to be so dirty. And Scott Israel, no. I told him, I said, "You know what? Standing right in my son's living room with his arm around my neck. He said, if I become to be sheriff," he said, "I'm going to bring Ray with me." I told him, I said, "You know what?" I said, "I appreciate it. I thank you." I said, "Because he didn't desire and he didn't deserve to lose his job. He didn't lose his job. But one thing I tell you, Scott, the truth don't need no leaning pole. It stands boldly by itself." And there was him, his wife, his mother-in-law, and his children.
Wow. And Raymond, I want to go back to you here. You have been really your whole story, and again, we can't capture your story in this a lot of time. I don't even think that's possible. I think one of the things that I want to see is some type of justice. So, where are you now with your case?
Well, after the other two arrests, Mr. Watson, because they stormed my home on two separate occasions, we were finally able to file the case. They had me go to mediation, and the Broward Sheriff Office asked me, "Oh, well, Ray, we are you willing to take $100,000?" This is what my attorney said, Bruce Little. I told him, I said, "Man, you got to be crazy, man. I done lost everything. What you mean $100,000? I said, "That can't do nothing for me and my family." So, of course, we go to mediation. When we get to mediation, they asked me again. He was there, Mike Piper, who was the sheriff counsel, and the lady from risk management proffered to me, "Well, Mr. Hicks, we're going to give you $100,000 to resolve the case." I told him, you're not going to give me nothing. I'm ready to go to trial. So I told my attorney, I said, man, listen, I'm not going to sit here and entertain this nonsense. I said, I'm ready to get up and go, man. So, of course, he said, well, I said, man, listen, I'm ready to get up and go, man. I'm not going to entertain this crap. So they said, how much you asking? I said, 2.69. So they said, no, we're not going to even come close. So I got up and we walked out. So finally we go to trial. And when we get to trial for the civil case, that I filed for malicious prosecution, false arrest, imprisonment, a violation of my Constitution, civil rights, supervision, retention, destruction of evidence. We get to trial, and of course, they picked an all-white jury, which I didn't care. And of course, as my mom and everybody, my wife and my kids, some of the neighbors and everybody else, my former supervisors, the counsel from the Federal Detention Center, came to testify in my favor. As they listened to the testimony, the jurors was crying. So we went until that Friday afternoon. So when Mike Piper saw the jurors crying, my attorney gave closing argument and asked for the 2.69. And you can see the jurors shaking their head like this is not enough money for this family. So of course, Mike Piper said, well, Your Honor, we asked for a recess. So the judge said, we'll grant the recess and we'll convene back on Monday morning. So over the course of the weekend, we get back to the courtroom on Monday morning. And he said, before I bring the jury out, let's go on record. And the judge actually proffered to the courts that over the course of the weekend, he received a certified package from the defense counsel via FedEx. So I'm looking at my attorney like, did you know anything about this package? So he said, no, Ray, but just listen to what he has. So what do you mean listen to what he has to say? I said, this is ex parte communication, man. He can't do that. So, of course, the judge said that he received a certified package via FedEx from BSO counsel. And he was prepared to rule in the case. So he didn't bring the jury out, and the judge gave a directed verdict and kicked me and my family out of court. And as we walking away from the court, the jury must have thought that we came to a settlement. So the judge thanked the jury, for coming and gave them a certificate, and they exited out. So as they was leaving, they were just, saying that we hope that you guys got everything you look for. But unbeknown to them, the judge actually kicked us out of the courtroom, man. And come to find out, Mr. Watson, that judge was planted by the Broward Sheriff Office General Counsel to be the judge residing over the case. He said there was a Supreme Court order allowing him to try the case. There was never no Supreme Court order ever done by the Supreme Court.
So, man.
So we got nothing from the case.
Wow. Raymond, the last episode that we did was with a brother by name Abraham Bowden. And I mentioned him at the beginning of this episode. And he was also framed and wrongfully in prison. And the one thing that sticks out to me in both of your stories is the lack of due process in your cases. And so as of now, really your civil case is still open in a way, or it hasn't been resolved.
No, sir, the civil case is still open. It has not been resolved yet.
And this was how long ago?
Almost 20 years now.
Wow. Well, we have some questions that's been popping up in the chat box, and I want to give you the opportunity to address them. Feel free to ask your questions online as well. Raymond, there's one here that asks, so what were these false allegations reflecting or redirecting attention to cover up something? So one of the things that you mentioned was in the criminal case, there was there was no, after the prosecutors did not present the evidence, or so they didn't have the drugs, they didn't have the money. What was done to them? Because you were tried, you lost 16 months of your life, right? And was there any accountability for the false accusation?
No, there was no accountability, Mr. Watson. As a matter of fact, every last one of them were promoted to a higher rank. And some of them still work at the Broward Sheriff Office to this day. And I've been reaching out to all the top administrators at the Broward Sheriff Office, Internal Affairs, and everybody else, about this particular situation. And some of those individuals actually going on and retired now. I would have had over 30 some years, almost 30, 34 years, if they had not did what they did to me. They gave me a retirement, but I'm getting a partial retirement.
Wow. Well, I kid you not. Your story is. I'll let use the word unbelievable, because after a while, when you hear these stories of injustice, they become more and more believable. But Raymond, let me ask you this question. What message? I mean, what message do you have as far as the justice system go? Like, what is your message?
Well, first and foremost, you had people who gave their lives, like Dr. Martin Luther King, fighting, trying to bring faith to humanity. To this day, it's still not the case. There has to be some form of transparency and accountability in law enforcement. And my word would be to the people, man, is who police the police. Who police the police? The fact of the matter is that, how is it that these people can take a highly decorated officer? Mr. Watson, I was a Gold Cross recipient, Silver Cross recipient, 2-time deputy of the month. Never been in trouble in my entire life. So how do I go from being a highly decorated officer to being an inmate faced with natural life imprisonment? Something wrong with this system, man. And not only that, while I was an inmate incarcerated, Mr. Watson, if you look at my book title, I'm Still Standing, you will see where I saved the life of another detainee, and I was honored by the warden of the institution.
Wow.
To this day, I'm still saving lives. 2013, a gentleman OD when I was working on the rail downtown Miami as a captain. A gentleman OD'd on heroin. I performed CPR on this guy, 32-year-old white Caucasian male. I performed CPR until paramedics arrived. When they arrived 8 minutes later, they gave him Narcan, a reversible medication for heroin. And of course, he sat right up like within 2 minutes. I was named Officer of the Year, and I was promoted to a captain. I was just a regular officer, a security officer. When I worked out at Chrome, processing center in Miami as a lieutenant, I saved another life when a gentleman hung himself because he became disgruntled when he went to court, and the judge gave him order to be deported back to his country. Me and 2 other individuals were able to push him up and untie the noose, and the doctor said if they had arrived 15 or 20 seconds later, he would have died. I won another life-saving award. So how can I be this bad person that they have tried to make me out to be, when in fact that I've never did anything wrong? Anytime I apply for a job, I gotta explain about the cocaine sale. It's not fair, man. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to my family. We lost everything, Mr. Watson. My home, my cars, my finances. I couldn't even feed my family, man. I applied for food stamps, unemployment, and I couldn't get it. So I took a job putting down sewer ladders and water services. The person who gave me a job was a former inmate who I helped turn his life around. His name is Gaston Aiken. He became a foreman of a construction site and heard I needed a job. He gave me a job as a laborer. So there I was working 9 hours putting down sewer ladders.
So let me get this straight. An inmate that you once oversaw, when you got out, gave you a job in his company.
Yes, he did. The company was called Installed Construction. And he went to his boss, which was Kelly Day, the superintendent. He said, Kelly, I want to hire this man. And Kelly said, man, if Dog, they call him Dog, if he speak that highly of you, you got to be a good person. And they hired me, and I was working, putting down sewer ladders and water services making $9 an hour, bringing home $213 a week, man. And now that same individual who's been to prison 3 times, selling drugs and everything else, has changed his life around. He's actually a superintendent now, making over $130,000 now as a superintendent of a construction site. His 2 sons, one of them worked out with the Miami Dolphins, Jonathan Akins. His other son, Marquise Aiken, worked out for Jacksonville Jaguars.
Wow. Let me, and I want to be mindful of time because I want to get to the question that's popping in the chat. But you talked about the story about the way you treat, as when you are correctional, when you was in corrections, the way you treated the inmates and how that sort of turned around to sort of what goes around comes around, right? Can you mind sharing a story about the time you were grocery shopping? I think you shared that with me in our conversation. Do you know what story I'm referring to?
Yes, sir. Yes. As a matter of fact, there was time that I had to scrape up nickels, quarter, dimes, and pennies, man, just to put food on the table. And the people laughed at me. They laughed at my wife. It wasn't me. It was actually my wife. My wife and kids had to scrape up nickels, quarters, dimes, and pennies just to put food on the table at Winn-Dixie. And as she held the line up, the people was laughing at her. And, not only that, my oldest daughter, she was being ridiculed at her school by other classmates, saying, oh, that's why you guys have that nice house. House cost me $113,000, a 4.3 with a 2-car garage. That's how you guys own that Mercedes. The Mercedes cost my wife and I $37,000, and I didn't know any of this stuff until I got home, Mr. Watson, but I could tell you this, man, no one would never know the pain, and the hurt that I have on the inside. And you can ask my mom, she'll tell you, man, she's there. All the stuff that I witnessed as a young kid, all the turmoil that her and my dad went through as I was a young kid growing up. I'm the oldest one. I saw it all, And as I got older, man, I just, my dad have always taught me how to fight. I've been fighting ever since I was 6 years of age, Mr. Watson. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not the kind of person that infringes on nobody, but don't infringe on me, man. And I'm not a talker. But I thank God for my faith and my belief in the Lord. Because in my family, because if it wasn't for God, and family, and my faith, I don't know, Mr. Watson, but I've seen the manifestation of Christ. And how I've seen it is because everything that the enemy tried to take from us, the Lord has given it back to us. I don't have no extravagant home, but I got a roof over my head. Cars that was repossessed, God has blessed me to have better vehicles. I'm still working now in security. So, to be honest with you, man, I look up and I thank God each and every day. But I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, man.
Well, I'm so glad that we got a chance to talk. And I know, I'm not sure if anyone backstage had anything to add. If you do, put it in a private chat and I can bring you on stage as well. But there's a couple of questions, Raymond, that has popped up. And one question in particular that I'm really interested in, and it was actually this one right here, if you can see it. What do you feel Black police associations should be doing to address these issues when Black officers need that support?
Well, first and foremost, these politicians, Mr. Watson, that we put in place, man, when you go to them, whether it be the mayor, the vice mayor, the congressman, the state senator, and all these other individuals, man, who has authority, the state representative, all these individuals, man, who we actually put in office, they should have a duty, responsibility, man, to engage in these type of situations. But when you go to them, because I've gone to them myself, and every last one of them has kicked me out. So to be honest with you, this is one of the reasons why people who work in law enforcement are reluctant to come forth with any information that they may see that happened behind closed doors because of that blue code of silence. Is because of what happened to me and my wife and kids. But I can tell you this, Mr. Watson, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it the same way because I'm that same kid. My mother, she's on the line. You ask her. Ask her how many fights that her and my dad have had. Ask her how many times that she took a razor and cut my dad up for him putting his freaking hand on her. You know, so to be honest with you, again, only thing I want to do is go into law enforcement to make a difference and take care of my family, man. You know, I didn't go in law enforcement to belittle, degrade nobody, or to plant drugs or beat young black offenders to the ground and take money. Look at all these different situations that's transpiring now in America.
Mm.
You know, but I will tell you this: to this day, I still love law enforcement because there's a lot of great men and women who put the uniform on each and every day to make a difference in society. So to be honest with you, you know, anybody that's gone through just a fraction of what me and my family has gone through, I wonder if they would feel the same way. So to answer the question, Mr. Watson, you know, regardless of whether you're black, white, or Hispanic, or whatever the race is, people need to get involved when they see these type of situations. I thought they say when you see something, you say something.
Right. You know, so here's my I don't know which one to call it. My one thing I have a hard time understanding always. Whenever I'm hearing these stories, either it's you or Carrie Horn or last episode with Abraham Bowden, after all the things that were done to you, still to have the positive light about law enforcement. And I think that speaks to your heart, Raymond. I think that speaks to the love that you have for people and the love of God that you have in you. You know, and it takes a lot to go through all of that trauma and still come out on the other end saying, "I want to see good." You know, um, so again, I'm so happy that you are with us now. Um, now I want to be mindful of time, but if anyone wants to, any one of the folks on backstage who want to join in this conversation or make any comments before we go, I'd like to offer the opportunity. I did see one person. Did you want to join as well? This is nod your head, yes or no, or shake it. Okay. Raymond, can you tell me who is Patrice?
That's my wife.
Oh, okay. So that's your we call it the better half.
So,
All right, Patrice, welcome to Moses People Speak. How are you today, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm talking to your husband. Now, this is now the third conversation I've had with Raymond.
Okay.
We've spoken a couple of times. I know there was one Saturday in which we spoke for a couple of hours between me, Charles, and Sean, and even Carriel jumped on board. So you was with him through this whole ordeal.
I was. I was.
Wow. May I? And again, I don't want to be prying so much, but what was the impact on the family during this time?
I mean, it wasn't. It was hard. It was literally hard. But I mean, what BSO did to us, it shouldn't have been done to anyone. I can see, in my opinion, if Raymond was that bad person, if he did something wrong, but he did not. I've been with Raymond. We've been married for 33 years. We've been together for 35 years.
Mm,
I know he didn't do any of that stuff that they accused him of doing. Raymond went to work. He came home. He went to the gym. He came home. We had two young girls at the time.
mm,
Raymond was innocent of all of that stuff. And if I had to do what I had to do again, go through my thrift, go through my 401k, go through whatever I had to do to make
help make the wrong right, I would do it again. I would do it again because that one right there, he didn't do it. He didn't do it. And we're still to this day, we're fighting for justice. That's only, Raymond is the type of person that will give you the shirt off his back. I have to look at him like, really, Raymond? Because he just, his heart is so big. And I'm like, he didn't do it. He didn't. Raymond did not do it. And right now, I mean, this is why Raymond talks about it. And we lived it. Me and the girls, we lived it. But it's not easy to come and speak on it. We lived it, but I just don't like talking about it.
Raymond, can I ask you how old was your girls when this whole ordeal took place?
My oldest daughter, she was 12, and my youngest daughter was 7.
So they were old enough to know what was going on.
Yes.
Wow.
You know, it's just like Miss Carrier Horn, Mr. And I truly thank God for you allowing me an opportunity to speak to her. Here's a woman that stood up for justice, you know, because she saw something that was wrong. And as a result of it, look what she did. You know, she had 5 kids at the time, and they took a job from her. And she fought for 15 years, man, until she, you know, came across a platform such as you all, you know, the strategy for justice, Moses People Speak, and the lawyers out of Harvard University who got involved in a situation, and the case was remanded back to court, and ultimately they had to give her what she was entitled to. Well, I can tell you, Mr. Watson, on everything I love, my mom is on the line, my kids is on the line, my wife is on the line. If it costs my life, man, I'm gonna continue to fight until I'm totally vindicated, man. Because if I'm that person that did wrong, then guess what? I made my bed hard. I gotta lie down in it. But you know what, Mr. Watson? I went back and did my own investigation. And the Bar Sheriff Office said to me on July 16th, 2019, Mr. Hicks, I'm sorry, all your records has been destroyed, according to some Florida state statute. And furthermore, I went and got my records. When they said I was traveling to all these various states, I was at work every single day. So all these lies that they told, you know, they said I was on audio tape. They found out it wasn't my voice. It was the same deputy who arrested me. Then they lied and said I gave confidential law enforcement information, FCIC, NCIC. They found out I never ran that information. So why did you arrest me?
Wow.
They arrested me because of the fact everything you see going on now with these insensible killings that's taking place, where Black men, young kids are gunned down at the hands of law enforcement officials for whatever reason. You know, don't get me wrong. If I need to shoot somebody because there's an imminent threat, I'm gonna blow their brains out. You know, without a shadow of a doubt. But I'm not just gonna go out there and just shoot and kill somebody just because I feel like I can do that. But the problem is there's cops fall upon immunity. And to be honest with you, it's not fair, man. It's not fair. It's not right that they can go out and do these things and get away with it and still go on to some other agency and do the same thing to somebody else's child. Because I can tell you, Mr. Watson, one of the lead investigators, detective that was involved in my case, he went to Iowa and became the chief of police.
Wow. You know, I just, you know, again, your story is so much to unpack, and again, I know a little bit about it because I did get your book. I read your book. It's on my shelf back there. I also spoke with you for a couple of hours, and I know that we're not even scratching the surface of what you've been through. But you know, I just want to let you know though too that I want you to stay online after the show because I also want to talk to you about some other things as well too. But what can people do? Like what is your ask? Because I think that's one thing I want to make sure people understand. Maybe we can see how we can push this up, another level. What is your ask, Raymond, as of now? What are you looking to? What are you seeking right now?
What I'm seeking is my full retirement and all of my back pay that these people owe me, you know, just like they did to do for Miss Carol Horn. And furthermore, what they need to do is ask all these individuals, Mr. Watson, that was involved in my case. You know, I'm willing to take a sworn affidavit on a penalty perjury, and I'm willing to take a polygraph in reference to everything that I'm conveying to you today, sir, to let you know that I'm not lying. These people are wrong, man. And all of them, you call and ask them, what did Raymond Hicks do? Show me the evidence of all the things that he did wrong. They can't present not one thing.
All right. Well, before we end the show, Raymond, I asked this question for every guest that comes on this show: is what's your message to America?
My message to America again is, how is it that we live in the United States of America, the land of freedom, where there's supposed to be equality and humanity, but yet still, you got individuals who's supposed to be setting the tone and the precedent for the peoples of society to make the difference. We're the salt of the earth. It's the taxpayers' money that keeps us with a job, that works in law enforcement. So why is it right that these people can go out there and commit these type of heinous crimes and they're not being brought to the table to be disciplined for the things that they do wrong, man? I don't understand that. How could they cause me and my family so much grief and all of them get promoted to a higher rank? That's beyond me. I don't understand it. Then the justice system is not supposed to be that way. I've heard President Biden and Ms. Harris say that they're going to do everything within their power to bring reform and accountability to law enforcement. It's a shame and it's a disgrace, man.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Raymond, I'm gonna ask you and your family to stay online. I have a couple of questions to ask you afterwards. But I want to thank everyone for taking the time with us tonight. And remember, everyone, to speak your power through truth. Everyone, have a great night.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.